Okay, today we're making sticky buns, and we're starting out with the dough. And in the bowl I've got 3/4 cup of milk and a 1/4 cup of water that I warmed slightly in the microwave. You want it just a little warmer than room temperature, but you don't want it so hot it kills the yeast. And we're going to, as I said, there's a 1/4 cup of butter in there, softened. I'm adding a 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm going to add 2 eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast is equal to one of those little packets that you can buy in the store. I just buy it in bulk because we use so much, and you just want to blend that together a little bit. It's not going to mix. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding 3 1/2, and we'll add from there and see how much it needs. So we'll add the 3 1/2 and we'll let that mix. So that dough is really wet in there, so it's going to need at least that 1/2 cup and maybe a little more. So we'll add that. That's a total of 4, and then we'll let it mix a few minutes and we'll check the dough from there. And that's still really wet. I don't know how well you can see down in there, but you want it to come off the bowl and to form a ball, and that's pretty wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of flour, and we'll add a little at a time until we get the consistency that we want. Okay, I've wound up adding about an extra almost 3/4 cup of flour. What you want is to come into a dough ball, and you want it smooth and just a little tacky. You don't want it too dry, but you should be able to just slightly stick to it but not have any come off when you do that. With any yeast dough, the flour measurements are a basic starting point. It depends on your flour, it depends on your humidity level for the day. You always have to adjust your dough ball. It's very rarely do the measurements come out exactly. And if it's really dry, you may need to add a little extra flour, or if it's really wet, you may need to add a little less. And it's better to add just a little bit at a time, unless, like when I saw this, it was really, really wet, even at the original measurements. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put this into a grease bowl. We'll let it rise for about an hour, and then we'll proceed from there.
Enjoying the sun.
Now I've got my pan greased, and actually some other time I'll give you the recipe for my pan grease that keeps everything from sticking. What I've done is I've melted together 1 1/4 cups of butter and 1 1 cup of brown sugar, and you're going to put that in the bottom of your 9 by 13 pan. This is what makes your sticky buns sticky, and then you can sprinkle it with your nuts if you want nuts. I'm going to use some pecans over it, and then I just let that set while the dough is still rising a little bit, and that actually gives it a little bit of time to cool off before you put the dough on there. You just kind of spread it out, and that's the sticky part. Okay, so you got the butter and the brown sugar mixture in the pan. I sprinkled the nuts on top. You don't have to use nuts if you don't like them. That's ready to go. And the dough is also risen enough here, so what you're going to do is you're going to punch that down. And that's exactly what you do. And you're just going to kind of knead it a little bit. I'm going to flour my board, and we'll just a little bit of flour on the board. We're going to knead the dough on it. You just want to knead this to get the dough smooth and to get the air bubbles out. And what you do when you knead is you fold one end of the dough over, push with the heel of your hand, turn it a little bit, and do the same thing. And and you're going to knead for probably about 5 minutes or so, just to get to the dough as a smooth ball again after you punched it down. This is the part where it takes a little bit of work and I tend to make a mess. After you've kneaded the dough, you want to let it rest for probably 5 minutes maximum. That helps it to relax a little. And you just want to start rolling, and it's going to take a little bit to get this rolled out. And just flour your dough and keep turning and flipping, and as I said, it takes a little time and a little work to get the dough to cooperate. Now it's rolled out. The recipe says to spread with 1/4 cup of softened butter. I don't measure. You want a nice covering with the softened butter, because that's what's gonna hold your filling in there. You just want to smooth it out as much as you can here. Depending on how soft your butter is how smooth it goes. Now you've got the butter spread all over the entire surface. The recipe calls for mixing the 3/4 cup of brown sugar with the 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. I just like to sprinkle the brown sugar over and then sprinkle the cinnamon over the top, because I tend to use more than that because we like a lot. So you just want to kind of sprinkle it over, and if you want to mix it together, go ahead. And this is your filling, so you kind of want to leave a little edge here so that you can seal your dough a little better. And I tend to be pretty generous with my layer of brown sugar, and then I just sprinkle the cinnamon over the top. And you can use as little or as much as you like. We like a lot of cinnamon, so we use a lot. And then you want to start from your long edge. You're going to roll it up. You just want to grab it and kind of stretch it a little bit here. Try and keep it even and roll. And stretch a little bit as you roll. And some of your filling is going to come out. Just keep stretching and rolling. Keep it as tight as you can. When you get to the end, you want to kind of pinch the edges as much as you can to try and keep it together. That's why you don't want to spread your filling quite all the way to the end. So hopefully it will seal together a little bit. You can use a serrated knife to cut this, but what I found works the best is a piece of plain old dental floss, or even a piece of thread will work. You just slide it under, bring the ends up, and pull, and it cuts it just as nice as can be. I cut mine a little thicker, so I came up a little one short of what I usually get, and I got 11 instead of 12. But you just space them out over the pan, and now you're going to cover them with some plastic wrap, and we'll let them rise. You want to let them get almost doubled in size. They're going to be pretty big for that pan, and then we'll bake them at 350, and it's going to take them about 25-30 minutes to bake up, and we'll show you when we're ready to go. Well, they've filled the pan at this point, so they're ready to go in the oven. I've got the oven preheated to 350. I'm going to check them about 20 minutes. The recipe says 25 to 30, but we'll check them. And if they're getting too brown, we can cover them for the last few minutes. But they're looking good. Brown at the 20-minute mark here, so I think they need a few more minutes, but I'm going to put a piece of foil over them to keep them from getting too much more brown here. They probably need about another 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. It looks like they're done. I'm going to leave them set out. We're going to leave them for 5 minutes, and then we're going to flip them upside down onto the pan and let the goo run all over them. You want a pan that's larger, and I recommend that you cover it with foil, and then just flip it quick and let it sit for a minute there, and hopefully it'll let loose. And then, ooh, a lot stuck. You just want to kind of scrape out whatever's in the bottom and spread it on top. And anything that sticks to the bottom you can just scrape out over them. And you'll want to let these cool a little bit because that will burn you very easily. It is hot.
Here we go, folks. Munchy time. Mmm. Mmm. Mmm.